The entire thought experiment was devised to prove that there's non-physical information, right? Now, if we have distinguished what are facts and we've given a definition for knowledge, although definition for knowledge is debatable, what is information? Hey guys, welcome back to Open Eyes. Today, first of all, a very happy new year. Hope you had a great New Year's Eve and a great Christmas and blah blah blah. As you can see, we have a different setting today. It's because we are doing something different today. This is not in Open Eyes. We usually talk about current affair issues, something to do with politics or news or social reform. But today we are doing something different. Today we are venturing into a new field of knowledge, which is philosophy. So welcome to the first edition of Open Eyes Philosophy. Today we have Aayush Tiwary, and we will start this discussion with the thought experiment of Mary's room, and then diversify into other fields of knowledge, understand the knowledge argument, the mind-body problem, and connect it to modern concepts like AI. So, Ayush, why don't you explain what Mary's room actually is?
Oh, sure. So, essentially, the experiment was designed by Frank Jackson in the 1980s to prove this knowledge argument that he had. So, the way the experiment goes is there is a super neuroscientist, her name is Mary, and she's in this room, this black and white room for all her life. And so she knows all there is to know about colors and color perception and the neurobiology behind color perception of the human mind. However, she has never seen an actual color because she grew up in a black and white room. However, one day she's released from this room and she sees an apple for the very first time. And so she obviously experiences
a red colored apple.
Apples being apples, they're red.
Apples can be green.
Right.
Apples can be green.
Okay.
It's a red apple.
It's a red apple. So the essential point is that she sees the apple for the very first time and the experience of having that apple. So the overarching question here is that does she gain any new knowledge by this experience of seeing the apple?
Mm-hmm.
And so essentially why Jackson derived this argument was...
Jackson derived this argument to prove that there is non-physical information.
Exactly.
Right?
So it was essentially an argument against physicalism, which is the argument that says that everything in the world, including that which is mental, including that which we call the spirit, is essentially made up of physical stuff, right? It can be explained in terms of physicalism,
right.
and that it's robust and concrete and
physical
tangible.
Means anything that you can feel.
Exactly,
you can
exactly,
see,
right.
Right? Now, let me just highlight what the Mary's room argument is. So, Mary has all the physical info that she requires about color about color vision before her release. Physical information. Now, there is some information that she doesn't know pre-release. However, therefore this proves that after her release, she has gained some form of information, and therefore that information is non-physical. Right? Now, the one contention against this entire Mary's room argument is that it's begging the question, because to reach the conclusion that there is non-physical information, you have to assume that there's non-physical information as well, right?
It's called the logical fallacy petitio principii.
Right.
And I mean, yes, there are criticisms to sort of this, right? But so to sort of back up this argument, right? It's rooted in this worldview called monoism, right? Which is very popular amongst the Buddhists, right? And the whole concept of nirvana is where one derives energy from this one constant source of energy, right? So essentially every other thing that there is, essentially every other organism or even non-living things that there are is derived from this one source of energy. And hence there's just one thing and everything is a form of that thing, right? So, and then that basically adds to physicalism because it proves that everything can be explained in terms of that energy and its physicality, right? And then what the physicalists also claim is that these physical concepts have an impact on mental sort of personality also, right? And mental things. So an example of this would be what the philosopher John Locke coined, the term tabula rasa, which states that every human being is born with a clean slate, with no sort of prejudices and biases or anything. Right? His personality is built while he grows up in society, and so that's physical. That's physicalism right there. So how?
Wait. So let's understand the concept of tabula rasa. So what is he arguing, that that the brain isn't programmed pre-birth?
Yes. So Locke came up with this argument to oppose the view that everyone was born with a set of morals and ethics, and hence Christianity, sort of the people who were born in the Christian religion, were devoted to Christ from birth. Right? And Locke wanted to disprove this, and hence he stated and actually went on to prove that everyone is born with a clean slate. There's nothing there. It's just everything develops as you grow older. And so it's how this supports physicalism is that it shows how physical concepts can affect a personality, can affect the mental status of a human. So that's essentially how physicalism is a concrete sort of worldview. However, then Jackson
And physicalism is the dominating view of information, even in the sciences, even in sociology. That is the dominating view, because, well, the problem with we get into the problem with experiencing with quantifying information which is non-physical is pretty difficult to do, and at this point in time impossible, right? So you can't have a field of study which incorporates that into its realm of information, right? So let's talk about qualia now. So qualia is the individual instances of subjective conscious experience.
That sounds like a
whole lot of jargon. Essentially what this means is the color red is perceived differently by different people, right? And well, the problem with qualia is that you don't know, you can't ever confirm qualia, because well,
it's so subjective.
Yeah.
It's like I taste chocolate ice cream and you might not taste the same thing that I taste. Right? And there's no way of me knowing that you taste the same thing as I know, as I taste. Right? And it's very...
So the experience of that first taste would be different.
Exactly.
And
it's very subjective.
That relates to the Mary's room experiment, thought experiment, because she sees the color red for the first time. And then, you know, when you talk about Mary's room, it's almost self-intuitive that she has learned something new. From like when with my personal experiences, when I try out something new for the first time, where I like, for example, the umami flavor, right? If you tell me umami is a savory flavor, that's what you call umami. Until I've tasted savory, I don't know what umami is, right?
So it's like if someone described the color red to Mary, it won't mean Jack to her, because it's qualia that comes into play. And if qualia is true, then Jackson's argument stands that there is non-physical knowledge to be gathered and to be acquainted with. Right. So in order to sort of extend this thought experiment, philosophers in the 1990s, they came up with another experiment to better comprehend this thought experiment. So imagine a scientist who knows everything there is to know about chemicals, right? And let's take ammonia as a particular example there. He knows the structure of ammonia, the applications of ammonia, whatever there is to know in terms of chemical about ammonia, right? And the very first time that he actually sees ammonia, he'll be able to decipher the structure of ammonia. But no one will be able to tell him the smell of ammonia, how that smells and how that impacts.
How do you
describe that?
Yeah, like you can describe with adjectives.
Yes, you can say it's pungent, but what is pungent?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, it's a tricky problem to tackle.
Exactly. It's the description of sensations is not exactly sensations. As obvious as that sounds, it's an important philosophical observation.
Right, because then that would mean that non-physical information exists, and that's huge. That's massive, right? Okay, let's now delve into how Mary's room thought experiment talks about the mind and body problem.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
So first let's highlight what the mind and body problem is.
Right. So in order to to give a history about this, in the 1700s, René Descartes, the famous philosopher, he started doubting everything. And you have Cartesian skepticism as a sort of a way of life, as a theory, right? as a philosophical theory. And so he started doubting everything that he could. And he thought that there was this devil who was trying to play him and who was trying to deceive him by creating, let's say, other human beings or other objects. And however, what Descartes reached to was that he couldn't doubt his doubting. He couldn't doubt that there was doubting happening because he was doing it, right? And hence he reached the conclusion, cogito ergo sum, which means that I think, therefore I am. And so what Descartes unknowingly did was that he contrasted the sort of the predominant philosophy that there was of physicalism, wherein he proved that there was something other than the physical. There was something such as a mind, a spirit, or as Hindu mythology puts it, the Atma, right? There is a spirit there. And so hence you have this now contradiction between physicalism and mentalism. And hence dualism as a philosophical view was born. And so then you have the mind-body problem, which was basically brought up by a queen. I can't remember. I can't.
Yeah.
Remember
Some queen wrote to Descartes saying that, well, what's the connection between the mind and the body?
Right.
How do these two parts of being communicate with each other?
Right.
And Descartes gave a very stupid answer in the sense that, oh, it's a pineal gland.
It's the pineal gland right here.
Yeah, which is wrong.
Because you can't explain that physicalism and mentalism work because of a physical organ in your brain.
Like,
physical part of
the
your
same
brain.
reason.
Exactly.
It's the same fallacy with the Mary's room
It's
argument.
petitio principis.
Yeah.
The question.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, yeah, and how does that relate to Mary's thought experiment?
So before I answer that, let's get into. I read somewhere there was this guy who got a rod shoved up his brain and his personality changed.
Right. So Phineas Gage, very famous case in the field of neuroscience because the rod went up through here and came out from this side of his head, and somehow miraculously he survived. However, very interestingly, his behavioral factors, everything about him as Phineas Gage the person changed after that accident. And from a neuroscience perspective, that makes a lot of sense. From a physicalist perspective, that makes a lot of sense. Because if you lose part of your physical being, then you would be different, especially the brain, which is responsible for basically all your body actions.
So I think essentially what Cage's case proves is what Jackson's belief was. Jackson was what you call an epiphenomenalist.
Mm-hmm.
An epiphenomenalist is a person who believes that physical aspects, physical attributes have an effect on mental attributes but not the opposite. So the mental can't affect the physical, whereas the physical can surely affect the mental.
So the mental can't affect the physical.
Right. But the physical can affect the mental. So the rod getting shoved up his brain changed his personality, and the personality essentially.
The personality is the mental part.
Exactly.
Right?
The personality is the ambiguous sort of spirit.
What's interesting about that statement is that I think as scientific knowledge develops, we're realizing that's not the case all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, say you had a really bad breakup, okay, and you're heartbroken. You're hurting all the time.
Right.
Alright, you're depressed, you're sad, but
You can stop.
Right? So yeah, you're depressed and sad.
I get the point, Augustine.
Right. That can actually lead to heart failure.
Oh.
Because the way our body works, the way what the effect of that heartbreak is that your muscles in the heart weaken, and that can cause a rupture, potentially a heart attack as well because of a lack of blood flow.
Damn, so hearts can really break?
Hearts can really break because of heartbreak.
Open your eyes with Okujik
Right. So what does Descartes have to say about that, huh? Exactly, he's dead.
He's dead.
That's right.
Oh.
Right?
You don't speak.
But you get my point.
I do get your point. I do get what you're trying to say. Let's get back to Mary's thought experiment here, right? How the whole reason Jackson came up with this experiment was to prove epiphenomenalism, right? So how the physical can affect the mental, but the mental can't do the same. So how this relates to the mind and body problem is that it shows how the body, let's say physicalism, is sort of embodied in the term body, in the mind-body problem. Right? It's not really the mind, right? There's a brain and there's a mind. There's a huge difference between those.
Brain is the physical, mind
exactly.
is the
Mind is what you can't define. It's the
mind is the
ambiguous one.
ontological,
Exactly.
physical. Right.
Ontological one. That's a great way to put it. Anyway, so how this relates to the mind-body problem is, let's say the physicalism, the whole philosophy behind physicalism can be explained in terms of the body, and Mary's knowledge is limited to the physical. It's limited to the theory of it. It's limited to the neurobiology of it. She has not gained first-hand experience of seeing an apple, right? And hence, she's not really reached the body part yet. She's not really reached the mind part yet. She's stuck on the body. And so the very first time she sees an apple or she sees the color red, she's experiencing the body. She's experiencing the effect that the physical has on the mental. And so this is what essentially the mind-body problem is, right? Why is it that only the physical can affect the mental? And so what are the sort of laws that govern this interaction? What are the laws that sort of say that only, okay, so these are the necessary and sufficient conditions for one to affect the other? And so essentially that's how this could be related to Mary's thought experiment.
That is an interesting point. Alright. Now let's get into some objections to this the conclusion Jackson has reached with the Mary's thought experiment.
Before that, how about we sort of answer, there's three ways you could answer the question that did she gain new knowledge, right? Because that is what Jackson was trying to prove. He was trying to show that she did in fact gain new knowledge because of it. But so there's essentially three answers to that argument, as I said. So the very first is that Mary gained new knowledge, but she had old facts.
Right.
So there is a distinction there. Would you like to differentiate between facts and knowledge?
Right. So facts is a justifiable true belief. Right? And that definition is almost universally agreed upon amongst philosophers, right? Knowledge gets a bit more complicated, but the way I have defined it, and I think it's a reasonable definition, is the amalgamation of facts which reveal something higher than facts in the known realm.
Right, so it sort of helps you understand.
Yeah, it gives you, it explores a new part of the real world.
That's a great way to put it. Right, so now since we've made this distinction, let's get into the view that Mary learned new knowledge, Mary gained new knowledge, but with old facts.
Right, so let's draw an analogy first. Like we were discussing this earlier, a pot of boiling water.
Oh, right.
Right? So, say a person who has no idea of physics will say, I light up the fire, the water heats. The water heats up and therefore it boils. Right? But a physicist will say that you turn on the heat, the heat is transferred into the molecules molecules move and vibrate, and that produces heat, which boils the water.
Right. So it's essentially
the conclusion. The conclusion is the same. The way you've derived the conclusion is different.
One's ontological, one's epistemological.
Yes, exactly. Right. One's practical. Yeah, it heats up. Well, it heats up because the molecules are heating up and they're vibrating.
So that's the view that she gained new knowledge by looking at the apple, because there is non-physical knowledge, and then she gains it by viewing the apple, but with old facts. Now these facts are regarding the theory of color perception and neurobiology behind color perception. So that's essentially the view, which there are objections to, right? This it's not completely infallible, though it might make sense in this particular scenario. But the objection to that is regarding to the way of representation of facts, right? So for example, let's say there is a light bulb, right? And to a layman, I describe a light bulb, and instantly he connects my description of a light bulb to an image of a light bulb in his brain. Right? So he perceives that fact. He is receptive to that fact. But on the other hand, let's say if I say that it's a glass orb with
glass
No.
or with electricity running through it, through tungsten film,
Exactly.
which heats
Different
up and
noise.
releases photons into the black. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense to
Exactly.
someone who doesn't know
Exactly.
what photons are.
It's the same thing. You're reaching the same conclusion that there is a light bulb, but it's different ways of putting the same fact. Right? So that's essentially what the objection to the new knowledge, old facts view is. It states that looking at an apple is a different way of viewing the same fact. The fact being
Right.
that colors can be perceived by the human eye.
Here's the thing, right? The entire thought experiment was devised to prove that there's non-physical information, right? Now, if we have distinguished what are facts and we've given a definition for knowledge, although definition for knowledge is debatable, what is information? Because again, if new knowledge, old facts, you're still gaining new knowledge. If you talk about non-physical knowledge, that the new knowledge, old facts, argument against the Mary's thought experiment, what it's trying to prove, still stands because you're gaining new knowledge. Therefore, the new non-physical knowledge exists. Right? So how do you define information?
I think what I would say in regards to that is information. It's a really tricky thing, isn't it? Because it's used in different contexts, right? So there is not a fact booth, let's say at a mall, or a fact desk. There's an information desk, right? So I think information is somewhere between facts and knowledge, right? So you have facts that can accumulate to produce knowledge, but
Or is perhaps information something that everyone can understand? Because okay.
well, why might knowledge not be that?
Well, let me explain. Fact. Fact is tungsten. Not tungsten. That's not even tungsten. Helium is the first element on the periodic table discovered by Mendeleev, for example.
Okay.
That doesn't mean a whole lot to someone who doesn't understand.
So you're saying that's not information, or is that not?
I'm
knowledge?
saying that's fact.
That's a fact.
However, that fact may not be understood by everyone. Right? Information, on the other hand, makes facts accessible to everyone. Okay? Let's say the mall, you have the information desk. Okay? You could have looked at the same information in a layout of the mall, couldn't you?
Yes.
If you had the architectural layout of a mall, you could have figured that out. But shop 22 doesn't mean a lot of things to you. Lifestyle means a lot of things to you. Right? So information desk provides you facts in a way that is understood by you.
So you're saying that facts are inherently exclusive, right? They're sort
Facts
of
are true.
excludable.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
They sort of they have this esoteric. They have this particular group of people who can conceive them, who can comprehend them. Right? And so when you reduce this quality of facts of being exclusive or excludable, you make that into information. Is that
A fact may not be understood by everyone.
right? But when you
But
make it
information
accessible,
needs to be understood by anyone who gets the information.
That's a really interesting way. But then what's the difference between information and knowledge?
Knowledge is an amalgamation of facts. Information is a reiteration of it.
I think I can make my peace with that. It's a real solid one. And although there might be objections to it, and if you're
Again, guys. I'm 17. He's 16. We are in high school. We are not philosophers. We are two people who want to discuss shit. Alright? Now let's get into the ability hypotheses. Right?
Which is one of the
which is
non-propositional knowledge.
Yeah,
exactly,
that Mary hasn't gotten any new knowledge by all information. Right? So essentially what the ability hypothesis states is that knowing what an experience is like just is the possession of these abilities to remember, imagine, and recognize. It isn't knowing what, it is knowing how.
I think you need to reiterate the last sentence. That's very important.
Right. It isn't knowing what, it is knowing how.
That's
It's-
what any ability sort of makes you capable of doing, right? It's not what of it, it's the how of it. It's so essentially what these philosophers who propose this particular view, what they're saying is that Mary gains the ability to imagine, to store stuff in her memory and to imagine that again, right? So that's essentially what the ability hypothesis is, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah. So what they're contending is that when Mary sees the color red, she gains the ability to imagine the color red. She hasn't gained any new information.
Exactly. Or but wouldn't we say that experience is somehow knowledge as well? Why is that not a viable view? Why isn't experience knowledge?
Well, why is experience knowledge?
Well, because you're facts of nature. So let's say natural facts, right? So for someone who's never seen a tree before, right? The fact is that trees exist. And the accumulation of these facts would be when a person sees it, right? When the person sees a tree and witnesses this natural fact, and that becomes knowledge to him because he's experienced it now, he's seen it. So why won't experience be knowledge?
Well, it depends on how you define knowledge, right? Knowledge, amalgamation of facts. So multiple facts need to be used. Or one fact needs to be used, and it needs to be different from the fact. It needs to be a higher order information, a higher order knowledge, right? So facts is like tier 1, knowledge is like tier 2. Okay, it will be something of a higher order which reveals something about the world, something new about the world, right? So does experience reveal something new about the world?
I would say yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So let's say the very first.
It might reveal something new about the world to you, but how does it reveal something new about the world in the realm of knowledge?
But doesn't Mary gain new knowledge that is unique to herself when she sees the apple?
Oh, so now you're making a distinction between shared knowledge and personal knowledge.
Yes. So that's what I was getting at. Personal knowledge and shared knowledge. Right. So shared knowledge would be a particular type of knowledge that reveals something new about the world. And then personal knowledge would be knowledge that reveals something about the world to the individual. Yes. So if it is accepted that experience counts as knowledge, let's suppose that for a minute. Right? Let's set that on the table for a minute. If experience is knowledge, then there is an objection there, right, to this particular view. If what you're saying is what the ability hypothesis, if what it is saying is that experience is knowledge, if that's what it is saying, then the objection to that would be that the experience of having something, right? The reality and experience might not be the same, right? So you gain. So there's three things essentially. What I'm trying to say: there's imagination, there's reality, and then there's experience. You can have experience of reality and experience of imagination, right? But these are really different, right? One leads to the production of knowledge and the other doesn't. You can't imagine something, experience it in your brain, and then gain knowledge from it. And that's the objection to the ability hypothesis, because imagining is not producing knowledge, whereas experiencing is. Whereas experiencing reality is. That's what I'm saying.
Also, another valid objection to the ability hypothesis is that, well, say a person has seen the color red and has seen the color blue. Right? And this person possesses an amazing quality to visualize what these two colors would look like if they were mixed together. Right? They haven't experienced that new color physically, but they can still imagine it.
But does that count as knowledge? Because it's not really reality, it's imagination.
Does that count as knowledge? I would think so. Because you know about a new color now. At the very least, it counts as fact.
I think I can agree to that. But then there's also this very interesting thing that I saw in this Netflix movie called The Other Life, right? Where check it out, guys. It's a really interesting movie. But what the thesis of the movie is that imagination and reality are chemically identical to the brain. It's the same hormones. It's the same chemicals that are being released to have that same experience.
When you dream imagining, yes?
When I dream, I'm imagining. Okay.
Because you're experiencing it, so you must be imagining.
Right. Right.
You have a lucid dream. Okay? Lucid dream is where you have conscious
Control,
of your
yeah,
dream.
yeah, yeah.
So you can control the dream. In a lucid dream, you can basically do anything you want. You can fly, you can teleport, you can turn into a huge monster, you can have 10 people around you, you can have no person around you, you can destroy the entire planet.
Okay.
You can imagine that. Their imagine is literally literally the power, right? So, how do you know the experience of flying?
In real life.
Right, but you can still imagine it.
But
And it'll feel very real because dreams feel very lifelike.
oh, don't I know about it?
Yeah. Dreams feel very lifelike, but you will have no way of physically ever confirming that.
Ah. So if it's unverifiable, does that
Because you can't experience it, right? You can't experience
Right,
transportation,
yeah, yeah.
at least for now.
for now? God bless Elon Musk. Anyway, I thought that was a pertinent point to bring up because of the chemically identical.
Yeah, it is. It
yeah.
is an interesting question. Now let's take this into the modern context and think about the AI and the implications of the mind and body and the physicalism in terms of AI, right? Because okay, so there's something called a strong AI and there's something called a weak AI.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, so Alan Turing,
Right.
mathematician in the imitation game.
Enigma.
Yeah.
Enigma.
Mhm. Enigma, yeah, the Enigma code, right. So that guy essentially said that there are two types of AI. There's a strong AI and then there's a weak AI. Although he had very little idea what computers are, because back then it was old England, right? A weak AI is something like Siri or
Okay.
an autocorrect software.
Okay.
It can imitate a human function. Okay. A strong AI can fool another human that the AI itself is human. We don't yet have a strong AI.
But we're progressing towards it.
We are progressing towards it, but we don't yet have it. And if that is the case, then is the AI, then we would have bridged the gap between the physical and mental.
So you're saying if the AI has a mind of its own,
Right, we've used physical components.
does that count as physical or mental? Because it can think on its own.
Right, it will be identical to human in terms of its thinking process and the way it organizes thoughts. It'll be imitating a human brain.
So can artificial intelligence possess a spirit, a soul, so to say?
Yeah,
Because it has this independent capability to think.
yeah,
Right, it
because,
has-
because a strong AI can fool you into being human. If you can't find a difference, there isn't any.
That's very interesting.
Right? Okay, here's the thing. You can be AI right now.
I could be.
Yeah, I don't know that. You're doing a very good job of fooling me.
So when I think about this, right, I think about the future of the mind-body problem, right? Because when this technology does happen, when this comes into application, it'll just be a whole new turn on the mind-body problem, right? Because then here you have this artificial mind.
We would have accessed the mind by making a physical body.
So does that mean the physicalists were right all along? Because then you're using physical concepts.
But yeah, then we have because according to the mind and body problem, you can't create a mind, but you can create a body.
Yeah.
So you create a body which has a mind. Then what have you done?
God damn.
Messed up with my brain. That's what you've done.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is a good point to conclude and end this philosophical discussion. So today we started with the Mary's thought experiment, highlighted the issue of physicalism and does non-physical information exist. Then we highlight the knowledge argument and the mind and body problem. Went into the ability hypotheses, new knowledge, old facts, as well as objections to the ability hypotheses, and finally discussed the modern implications of the mind and body problem in terms of artificial intelligence. I am Aayush Tiwary. This is Aayush Tiwary. Thanks for watching. Aayush, tell them what they should do right now.
Guys, I need you to subscribe. I need you to like. I need you to share. Share, damn it!
And also, if you have any objections to what you've said, if you have anything,
Oh yeah, hit me
feedback
up.
to give us,
@Aayush Tiwary. Always open for philosophical discussions.
comment down below. If you have any problems with what you have said, comment down below. If you agree with what you have said, follow my Instagram @orkojit, ORKOJEET. Follow Aayush's Instagram @Aayush Tiwary, and follow the Instagram page of the Ipso Facto channel @ipso_facto_facto__. This is Aayush Tiwary signing out.